You seem to still be up there somewhere.
Maybe I am. There are flying saucers.
Supposing they're Martians or something in there.
Hey guys, welcome back to another Weird Wednesday. I'm Asherz, and this is...
Tobias.
Tobias! How was your weekend?
Oh boy, it was great, actually. I was back in Iowa for a library talk that I was giving at the Cedar Falls Public Library. And I was not prepared for how quaint and lovely of a town Cedar Falls is, honestly. I had never been there before. I was prepared for my presentation. But I drove in and I was like, wow, what a nice little town. I didn't get a chance to visit that much of it, but I should go back. Yeah, it just seemed really, really nice. But the presentation went really well. The audience was engaged and interested and open-minded and all of the stuff that you want an audience to be. Asked lots of questions, which is great. I never understand why people don't ask questions. Especially if they then come find you afterwards at your table or something, if you're at a conference, and then they ask you a bunch of questions. And it's like, well, you got to ask the questions so we can have this conversation with everybody. Nobody's going to judge you. We're all being weird here together.
I just imagine people like coming up to you afterwards and being like, oh, I got a question. You're like, nope, sorry, you had your chance.
Yeah.
That'll teach
exactly. That's exactly right. Let this be a lesson to you. Ask your question when I tell you to, and no other time. I get it. Some people are shy or self-conscious, and so I answer their questions at the table. But it's nicer for anybody listening, if you're at a conference or something, and the speaker asks if you have questions, and you have questions, just ask them at that time. Everybody will think you are super cool and smart for having a question. So do it. It went really, really well. Very positive experience. I'd love to go back anytime. So yes, Cedar Falls, Iowa, 10 out of 10.
Did you meet Slipknot when you were there?
No, are they from there?
I don't know. They have that album called Iowa, so I assume I really don't know much about them.
I don't know much about them either. I saw Slipknot at Ozfest like 20 plus years ago,
yeah.
But that's most of my exposure to Slipknot was like that one concert. So yeah, I don't know. What's weird, not to go off on like too long of a tangent, but my niece is into Slipknot and she is 18, just started college. And that shit blows my mind because I was like, fucking Slipknot, like they started touring decades ago. But they're still around, I guess, and kids still love them. So, good for you, Slipknot. You did it.
I didn't know they were still making music.
I have no idea. I don't know. Or it's like the equivalent of me. Oh, God. No, it is. This is so sad. This is, it would be the equivalent of like me liking Led Zeppelin in high school.
Yeah.
Seriously, like the gap is the same in everything. If you think about it, because I was in high school in the 90s, like mid to late 90s. And then, 20 years ago, that would have been the height of Led Zeppelin. And people loved Led Zeppelin when I was in high school. Like me and my friends, certainly. I had multiple Led Zeppelin t-shirts. And I owned all the albums, of course, on compact disc. Anyway. And and so that's like the equivalent gap in time for my niece liking Slipknot. And so with that, I will crumble to dust.
The fact that compact disc is archaic now.
Yes, the fact that I have to tell people that I was born in the late 20th century.
It's terrible.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, anyway, well, sounds like you had a good weekend. So
I did. How was your weekend?
Oh man, I did so much this weekend. So I would tell you that I went Friday and I saw a movie, but I'm just gonna pretend that didn't happen, because it was that bad.
Well, you have to tell us what movie it was now.
Oh geez, it was Joker, Folie à Deux.
Okay.
It's terrible. Um, I really like the first Joker movie. Joaquin Phoenix Joker. Ooh, I'm gonna make some people mad, but that's my Joker. That's the one I like. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like I like Mark Hamill, right?
Oh
As
yeah.
an animated series and all that, but like I really enjoyed the fresh take on it, right? I've been as somebody who grew up a Batman fan, I
Sure.
am that type of nerd. It was nice to have something new. And so just like everybody else, I was looking forward to it. And my God, Todd Phillips just like gave every single fan the middle fucking finger and clearly does not ever want to make another Joker movie ever again. So
That's what I kept hearing. Like I've read reviews, and I have yet to see anybody have a positive word to say about it, which is too bad. Jack Nicholson is my Joker.
yeah, he's good too.
By
Yeah.
the way, I thought he was the most comic accurate Joker, and I appreciate that. But anyway, he's also obviously a very talented actor. But that's too bad. Yeah. I mean, that really just confirms what I've been hearing.
Yeah.
Nobody's had anything good to say about Joker 2.
Surprisingly, nobody's liked it. No, I'm happy to see that everybody else felt the same way. It reminds me of when Halloween Kills came out and the fans were so pissed off that they petitioned for them to just make a new one.
Right.
like, I'll be honest. Halloween Kills was better than this.
Okay.
So, anyway, so I did that, which it sucked because I'd kind of mentioned how the weekend before we went and saw a movie, and it was nice to just kind of get away from reality for a moment. And this, I went by myself. I didn't take anybody with me. My kid wasn't there. It was just me, and I was really looking forward to just kind of I had another. It wasn't as crazy week, but another not so great week. So I was really looking forward to just watching a movie, and then it was disappointing. So.
Ah,
so bad. But I did watch over the weekend I watched The Substance, which was a breath of fresh air, because
good.
it's not like a masterpiece or anything, but man, I love me some body horror. It was, our very own Nate had suggested it to me the weekend before. And he was right. He was right. So
Nice. I'm
it
sure I'll
was
watch that one.
it was a good one. But then Saturday, I just wanted to go do just whatever. I wanted to go to the Halloween store. And so I took my daughter and we went to the Halloween store, and that was neat. I bought something very important, which is weird, but it's very on topic for this week's episode. I bought a butterfly skeleton, and it's a very specific. I really enjoy the non-accurate skeletons at Halloween time. Right?
I
They're
was
just
just going to say,
hilarious.
like, butterflies don't have internal skeletons,
I
right?
do,
Like,
yeah, I
okay.
do. Um, but I like them. But this particular, I don't usually buy the insect skeletons. Like the spiders and stuff. But this particular one means something a little bit more. And like I said, we'll get into that later on in the episode. So that was an interesting experience. And then we went and I discovered right next door, so that the Halloween store this year, because Spirit just pops up wherever. Right next door to where it is this year, is like a local chocolate shop,
Hmm.
and that was neat. Because it was somewhere that I didn't know existed. I didn't know we had something like that here. So that was nice. Of course, we stopped there, and I supported a local business, and whatever. Then we went home. Like, we got ice cream after buying chocolate, and then went home because why not more calories? So
Yeah, it sounds like you had yourself a nice little Saturday.
I did, and then Sunday, there was a local pagan festival that was happening, and I love a good pagan festival, and so
Sure. Who doesn't? I also love Christmas.
love Christmas, right? And so we so we attended that. I know I had talked about it before. There was like a local witches market, and it's the same people that run that, that had the pagan festival. So I kind of knew what to expect, right? Some pretty rocks and some tarot cards and stuff. But we went, and my God, I just learned I learned things about myself, and it's that I am too friendly at these things, I think. Because I stop and talk to every single vendor, and I don't know why I do it, but I feel
Mm.
obligated to. It's like I can't stop myself from doing it.
Yeah, see,
You
that
know?
would be tough. I mean, are you spending money at every single table? Because that would be
Yes,
an issue for me.
I am, and that's and like when you're at like something like this, it's first it's like not a big deal because fucking everybody's selling crystals, right? And they're like $2 or $3 a piece, and you're like, that's fine, 2 or 3
Sure.
bucks, that's okay. But then there's 50 booths.
Next thing you know, you spent $150 on crystals you don't need.
Yeah, right. It's crazy, and so it's because then when I start talking to them, I feel obligated to buy something at that point, and I have to buy something. I fucking bought a crystal skull that I don't need, but I mean, it is cool. It is really cool, but um, that wouldn't have happened had I not started talking to the fucking guy.
Can't do it. You can't get sucked in. I know how you feel because as somebody who goes to a lot of conferences, the same shit happens to me. That's why I try not to wander around too much and I don't make eye contact.
And like, how do you end that conversation? You know what I mean? Like, that's the hard part. Is like, I don't want to buy something at your booth, right? You got the same shit everybody else has. I want to at least make it to I'm only at booth number 5. Like, I'd like to look around and see what there is
Right.
before I spend money. What do you do? Well, thanks for talking. Not buying anything, though.
I think what you do, because this is what happens to me on the other side of the table all the time, is people will come up and they'll chat and whatever. And then they'll say something like, okay, well, I want to go take a look around. Like this looks great, and I'll probably be back. I just want to take a look around and see what's out there. And I've never been upset by that. And a lot of the time, they do come back and they'll buy a book or something, because I don't blame them at all. I
Yeah.
think that's totally normal. And yes, if you want to go do a lap and see what's at all of the different vendor tables before you spend your hard-earned money, who the hell am I to judge? You should absolutely do that. If that's the advice I would be giving you if you asked me, of course,
Yeah.
go do that.
That's true. I mean, and I think about that too. Like, as somebody who vends, I don't like take offense to people when they're like, I'm gonna, look around. I get it. There's all these tables here with all this cool shit. I completely understand. Why would you want to buy mine? I get it. not, not in that way. Just, I mean, you want to see what there is. Like,
Yeah,
I
why would you want to
understand
buy mine without seeing
that. Right.
everything first?
Right. And so, and so I get it, but I don't know. For me, being the person I am, I don't know, I feel obligated. And it's not even just that. It's like, they'll say hi, and I'm like, God damn it, here it goes. And then we just start talking. And then that's just the way it is. And then, I'll get 5 or 10, tables deep, and then like I'm like mentally exhausted. I just had fucking 10 whole conversations right before.
Right. You don't have to get common law married with every single vendor at the event, right? Like you can
But I
just,
do, I guess.
yeah, you can just
I
keep
don't
walking is all I'm saying.
I don't know what my fucking problem is. Just I'm being too nice to people, and so it's a weird thing. And like it just when I have a social interaction, like period, like and mentally there's this voice in my head, and it's like, don't talk about yourself, don't talk about yourself, don't talk about yourself. And I don't know why. That's just my social anxiety, right? That's how I've always been. So I have to like have this constant reminder. So then because like I have that triggering in my brain, I keep asking questions and I don't stop. And like you said, we get fucking common law married. Me and this person, we're best friends now.
Right.
I know everything about them.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Your
so we did that.
roommates. Yeah.
Right, we did that, and now I have a crystal skull that I don't need, but is very
Nobody
cool.
needs a crystal skull. No.
I mean, yeah,
It's a
that's
quality of life purchase is what it is.
it is, yeah, it is, and it was okay. Plus some various other rocks, pretty rocks now that I already have, but I don't have that one, right? So I have to get that one. So that's what I did. That was my weekend. It was all right. It was good.
Yeah, it sounds
Oh,
fine.
I remember. Okay, so I brought up the ice cream, and I couldn't remember why because I learned something this weekend. And
Hmm.
here's what I learned this weekend. So my daughter, every time we go and get ice cream, And she's always said this since she was little. She'll be eating it, and then she'll be like, "Oh, I have a back freeze." Not a brain freeze. She goes, "I have a back freeze." And I always just thought that this was something that she just says because she's kind of quirky. She's probably on the spectrum somewhere. It's fine. But, I just thought that she meant brain freeze. So while we're sitting there eating ice cream, she does it again. I got back freeze. I'm like, what is that? What does that mean exactly? Finally, after 12 years, I ask her.
Uh-huh.
And she explains it to me. Well, it's like in her back, on her spine, and it's like back freeze. She doesn't really know how to explain. It's like brain freeze, but in your back. And I'm like, what the fuck is my kid broken? And I actually Googled it, and this is a thing. Some people don't get brain freeze. They get that same sensation in their brain, but down their spine instead.
Huh.
Isn't that fucking weird?
That is weird.
You ever heard
Good
of
of
that
you to
before?
check in, though, after only 12 years.
I'm a glowing parent. Let me tell you. I'm just like, yeah, back freeze again. You do that a lot when you have kids. You're just like,
Sure.
okay.
Nobody can accuse you of being one of those, like, helicopter parents. So you got
No.
that going for you.
I'm just like, yeah, whatever you say. I finally asked her about it. And yeah, it's like a thing, and it actually is kind of interesting. Like I said, I Googled it and it's totally a thing. So,
Okay.
I don't know, listener, are you somebody that gets back freeze instead of brain freeze? Because like they do get brain freeze sometimes, but normally they get the back freeze instead. So,
Sure.
I don't know how rare it is, but it happens. So anyway, now that was my weekend.
Great. Well, yes. Do you, listener, get back freeze? Let us know in the comments.
Yeah,
Just saying.
tell us all about it. Tell us all about your back freeze. So anyway, pulling up my news now. I've got two newses this week. Two
Two
of them.
newses. Multiple
Two
newses.
two newses. The first news that I have happened in Nashville, Tennessee. So a garden center, JVI Secret Gardens, was broken into, but not just broken into by your run-of-the-mill burglar. It was broken into by, guess what? A clown. A clown.
God damn clowns breaking into our garden centers, creeping everybody out.
Creeping everybody out. Clearly the perpetrator is just some guy wearing a scary clown Halloween mask, right? And he breaks in. So the garden center, it's 2024 now, right? They got cameras in real time. And so the owner of it, this is mostly why I wanted to talk about it. The owner seems like he's the shit. Like I would drink with it, this guy. So he says he gets an alert for the camera and he goes to check it out and see what's going on, and he sees that, well, it's a clown. Because he was going to go confront the thief, but then when he noticed it was a clown, he said, and I quote, "Nope, I'm not going there."
Right? No, I get it.
He went on to describe the perpetrator. He said it looked like something from the movie Pennywise. I've never seen the movie Pennywise.
Did he mean it?
He meant it, yeah, and
Okay.
to hear him tell the tale in his very thick Tennessee accent is just hilarious.
I bet.
And what's funny is that he also goes on to say that somebody had broken in the same way before. So what they did, they kicked down one of the fences there and just walked onto the property. It's a garden center. It's open, right? But the fence is locked.
Yeah.
So he says that this happened 6 months before, and he thinks it's the same fucking guy.
What is in this garden center that's so valuable that people need to keep breaking in to steal it?
Propane tanks and saw blades, apparently, is what he took.
Jeez. Okay. I mean, I guess
Hank
propane's
Hill
kind of
breaking into the garden
expensive.
center. I don't know, but I'm like, if it keeps happening, like, at some point, my guy, don't you think you should probably get better security or a better fence or?
Well, did he call the police? Was this person arrested? If you're watching them do it in real time, there's not a lot of excuse for not stopping it.
I mean, you're going to be, well, so he did try to like talk through the camera, and he said as soon as he clicked it on, because when he goes to do the voice, it clicks on, the perp turned around, looked at the camera and said, "I'm leaving," and left. Didn't take anything that time.
That's hilarious.
He was like, "I'm leaving," and he left. But what are you going to tell the police? It was a clown? What did he look
Maybe.
like? Had white face, red hair. makeup.
Right. Well, if this is some, some meth head or whatever, he might be doing other stuff dressed the same. So then they
True.
could look at that and go, oh, well, we had somebody wearing a clown mask that broke into the Stop and Shop or whatever the other day. I wonder if it was the same person. And I'm just saying, you never know what kind of stuff they'd be able to piece together with that. So
Yeah, well, he did report it. I mean, he did report it. He's on the local news and stuff, so they know about it. But,
yeah,
it's now that you say that, like, I imagine that it's some meth head who has like a varying closet of like costumes. So, like, next week they're gonna be Zorro.
be hilarious. Yes. Batman's breaking into the garden center again.
That's how they get away with it. I mean, like, sure, I guess if it was the same clown, right? But if it's a clown, and then the next week it's a fucking dragon onesie, what are you gonna
Right.
do?
Perfect crime. Untraceable.
So anyway, I just thought that was a lot of fun. Sometimes during this time of year, we'll start getting the creepy clown sightings crop up again.
Yeah.
And you always wonder, is this going to be the story that starts it? One of them will be eventually. So I'm getting ahead of the game by reporting it here. I'm starting the rumors myself.
Oh,
So
good. We're not content to report on the news. We have begun to manufacture it.
yes, exactly. Well, you gotta, if you want something done right, you gotta do it yourself. Um,
No, yeah, no, I can't argue with that. That is flawless logic.
so you heard it here first. Well, probably not first if you're from Tennessee. You probably heard it locally, but you heard it here second, and that's what matters.
Right. You heard
Uh,
it here. Period.
you heard it here, which means that you're in the right place.
Yeah.
The other story I wanted to report on, I have more of a commentary on this than previously. There's been a new UFO study posted. This new UFO study, of course, categorizes the top sightings in the U.S., but not just the top sightings. It like ranks different major cities within the U.S. and their UFO sightings. So it will have the number one city for the state for sightings, and then of course an actual ranking of overall the country itself.
Hmm.
We see this a lot, right? We see this. I mean, people are doing this stuff all the time. What
Yeah.
I thought was interesting was who published this ranking and this study. It's a website that goes by Bet US. It's a sports betting website.
Huh.
And I just find that so weird. So one thing that we had, it wasn't last year, it must have been the year before, because Pat was hosting, and when he shared the news that week, it was like the top most haunted cities in the U.S. or whatever, and Chicago was on there, and so he wanted to share that bit of news, and who comes up with these rankings, right? How do we know what the top most haunted city is? Like, who does that? And so he
Sure.
gives me the source, and I check it out, and it was a landscaping company that published the article. And while we were recording, I think some of the older listeners will remember, I actually called like the landscaping company and was going to be like, what the fuck, where did this come from?
What did they say?
They didn't answer. I was on hold with
Ah,
them for like 15 minutes, and I was like, we got to go on to the show. But they never answered. And so I find that so, I mean, what's the point of posting these paranormal articles on unrelated websites? I don't get that. Um, so why would a
us-
betting website have this?
I mean, I guess maybe for a betting website, I'm sure they deal with like data and analytics all the time, because that's a lot of sports betting. Uh, so I guess there's that relatively tenuous connection. I don't know why a landscaping site would, unless they literally just copied and pasted it from somebody else, and then they're using it to try to attract visitors to their website.
Yeah, it's like a scam of some sort. No, not really a scam. That's not the right word. It's clickbait for
Yeah,
sure, but it's just trying to draw traffic for unrelated thing. So I guess you're curious, right? Where does my city rank in UFO sightings? And you Google that, and then BetUS comes up, and you're like, well, I'm already here. I might as well make some sports bets.
Naturally.
It's just so weird. I mean, whoever comes up with this stuff is just it's very interesting. And normally they are original. I didn't dig too much into this one. But it reminded me a lot of the lawn care company doing it. So I thought that was interesting. So if you want to know where your city ranks, go to betus.com. Not a sponsor.
Okay,
Yes.
well, good to know. I'm sure that is definitely an article with nothing but accurate and informative content that we could all learn something from.
Yep. Absolutely.
And that I'm not being sarcastic at all. Not me. All right. So, I do have a news. I've got a news for us, and it's about the Loch Ness Monster, because I love the Loch Ness Monster, and I will never not love the Loch Ness Monster. And I don't care how many people says that Nessie is an eel. I don't like that. That's stupid, and shut up about it. No, I mean, it's just not a fun explanation. It also has nothing at all to do with this article. So, okay, here we go. This is actually about another mysterious object being detected on sonar in Loch Ness. So, Sean, I'm going to say Sloggy. This is the only time I'm going to pronounce his last name. It's either Sloggy or Slogy. Sloggy might sound better. I think I would want to be called Slogy over Sloggy if it was me.
Yeah.
But anyway, so Sean Slogy will say, a skipper with Cruise Loch Ness recently told the Daily Mail he was doing his rounds out on Scotland's Loch Ness when he captured an unusual object on sonar. So Sean was with maritime pilot Liam Mackenzie last September 22nd when they noticed the mysterious shape on their sonar while preparing for another vessel's arrival. So the Cruise Loch Ness team later returned to the site to investigate, but whatever had caused the sonar return was gone. The object, registered at a depth of something over 322 feet, was described by Sean as the biggest thing I've ever seen. We've seen all sorts of fish that shouldn't be here, but this was different, he said. You should have felt the chills on the boat. I can feel them right now, honestly. Oh, those Loch Ness Monster boat chills. So he goes on to say that he's worked there for almost a decade, actually, and he's never seen anything like it. He also emphasizes, and I'll quote him directly here, sonar doesn't lie. The boat hasn't been on 5 whiskey distillery tours before going out on the loch. It's just doing its job. And that is true. Hopefully your boat isn't drunk before it goes out on the water, because boy, I have lots of questions if it is. So the object was reportedly visible for 2 to 3 minutes, during which time Sean and Liam captured a screenshot of it on their sonar. So the team noted the object's elongated shape and noticeable features, such as its multicolored appearance, which could indicate air pockets in the presence of a living creature. Furthermore, they wondered if the sonar return could be related to Nessie, the monster said to dwell in Loch Ness. So, okay. Sean admits, like just straight up, that they are not sonar experts. So first and foremost, like they see this weird thing, at least like they're honest about it. They're like, look, this looks weird to us. We are not sonar experts. But he's also never seen anything like this before. So it is at least interesting in that sense. What is also interesting about this to me is that this is not the first sonar reading capturing something that is at least being claimed to be anomalous in Loch Ness. This has happened several times over the past few years, and every time, and I'm sure this is just a coincidence, we don't need to look into it at all, it's by one of these tourist vessels that has sonar on it. And they're like, oh, look at this weird thing we found. Could it be the Loch Ness Monster, which coincidentally is the subject of our tours? I don't know. Maybe. Yeah. So that's what we got going on in Loch Ness. And, I don't want to be a relentless like cynic. I looked at the sonar. I am also not an expert on sonar. And so it did look weird. It is roughly Loch Ness monster shaped.
Yeah.
Like maybe it is something weird. Maybe it is some anomalous creature lurking in Loch Ness. I certainly hope so. I've loved Nessie since I was a little kid. Which is why I don't want Nessie to just be a giant eel. I want Nessie to be something weirder, like, I don't know, like some kind of, well, obviously plesiosaur is a popular one, but even like a giant mollusk, I think would, like, seriously, because that one makes sense to me. If Nessie was just like this giant, like freshwater slug, and that's why we never found a body, but that's also why people will report those knobby horns and stuff because they're really eye stalks. And that's like, that's a pretty cool monster. Anyway, what do you think of this sonar reading?
It looks very Nessie shaped. It's probably the coolest sonar reading we've had, from Loch Ness. I don't want to be the cynic either because I fucking want dinosaurs so badly.
Yeah.
and in the year of 2024, like I absolutely do. I know what the science says. I get it. You don't have to tell me, people that love to rain on my parade. But yeah, I mean, it does seem pretty convenient. I agree with that. But we kind of we touched on that. We've touched on that before. People that are out looking for these things are more likely to find these things, right? I
Right.
mean, so
Yeah. It's entirely possible that they're just out on the loch more than anybody else.
yeah,
And they happen to have sonar because that's part of their business. And they're actively looking, like you said, for weird things in
mhm,
Loch Ness. And so of course they're the ones finding them. So
yeah.
yeah, sure. I could buy that.
Yeah. I think the boring explanation is school of fish, right?
Yeah.
Probably the first skeptical thing to come to mind, but we don't know that for sure, right? We can't prove that. Again, it looks very Nessie shaped. What a coincidence. You tell me the fish are out there, they're just like, haha, it'd be real fucking cool.
Yeah, right. It is a bunch of fish in like a trench coat and fedora
Yeah,
pretending to be the Loch Ness monster.
the stupid humans.
Totally.
It's like that school of fish and Finding Nemo that make the different shapes. Yeah, I mean, are you telling me that that's more reasonable than fucking the Loch Ness monster?
Definitely not.
But I want to believe, and because we don't really know exactly what it was on the sonar. I mean, then I mean, who knows? It could be anything. It could be Nessie, and if somebody wants to believe that, it's not hurting anybody. So
True.
why not?
Yes. So I think what you're saying is relic plesiosaur confirmed.
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. I'm
Good.
confirming that now. It's solved. That's what it is. Clearly.
Okay.
So.
We did it.
That's good though. That's good information. I do like when we get this. I mean, in all seriousness, let's be honest
Yeah.
for a second. When you get this like the eDNA studies and stuff like that, that's like, oh yeah, it can't be that. It's probably an eel, right? Or you get these expeditions that go out and find fucking nothing. Your little child heart is breaking. But then you get stuff like this, and it kind of really rejuvenates it, right? You're like, well,
Right.
it's something. So
Oh, sure. Well, let me if I could expound a little on that DNA study. And the reason why I don't love the popularity of eels as sort of the de facto explanation for Nessie at this point. Now, Neil Gemmel performed a very useful study. Like he and his team, I feel like, did a great job. Like they're legitimate scientists. But even by like their own admission, they were not able to catalog every species in
yeah.
Loch Ness.
Hmm.
Even species that we know are there did not show up in their DNA survey. So it doesn't rule anything at all out. Like if it had some kind of anomalous DNA in there, it might have proven the existence of something weird in Loch Ness. But the absence of something weird in that survey does not disprove the existence of something in that lock. You know, the absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. It's
Yeah.
is something we've probably all heard in this field, and it's worth mentioning again. So Nessie doesn't have to be a large eel. I mean, maybe she is. I don't know. But she doesn't have to be,
I
you
like your
know,
slug
and
creature explanation. That's pretty
yeah,
sick.
dude, that's what I'm saying. Giant mollusk, like giant freshwater slug. It checks so many boxes. It would look the right way. You know, like it would. It would look similar to witness descriptions. Its eye stalks would be those knobby horns. When slugs die, they just dissolve into nothing. So there's no bones or anything for you to ever find. They're bottom dwellers that only come up for air very occasionally. So like, you know, they wouldn't be very noticeable. Like they're out of the way. And then when they surface for air every once in a while, maybe that's when the sightings happen. Like it just makes sense.
That's pretty good. But I mean, I love that the vet assistant sighting so much where it walked across the street.
Slug could do that.
He just thought he was seeing a plesiosaur.
Absolutely. Slug. I mean, actually, some of the reports on land, there aren't a lot, but like they describe this weird kind of amorphous creature, you know? So it could be a slug.
Weird. I love the strangeness of it all. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, we just, I just like with any cryptid, my explanation is that it migrates, so it doesn't live there all the time, and that's why we don't have good evidence. That's why it's hard to find these things, is because they
Sure.
migrate. So
Fair enough.
that's me, and they weren't there that day for the eDNA study.
I mean, apparently neither were a bunch of other species that live in the loch, so I don't feel bad.
Didn't like Aleister Crowley summon the Loch Ness monster or something like that?
I don't know.
We won't get into it today. We'll talk about him one day, but that's a story. That's for sure.
Yeah. He mostly summoned like hard drugs and sexual assault.
That's what I was gonna say. Rape. That's what statutory rape. Is that what he said?
A lot of that kind of stuff. So
Anyway,
yeah, that's a subject for a different time.
a different time. Good newsing. That's some good news right there.
Yes. Classic newsing all around.
Some tasty news. Okay, well, before we get into this week's topic, I just want to mention, Tobias, you posted something over the Patreon.
I
You
did.
posted your top 5 Halloween movies, and that's not.
Specifically Halloween.
I don't think it's Halloween like the Halloween franchise, but things that you need to watch during Halloween. I didn't look at it yet. I didn't
Correct.
cheat.
Yes, that is. Well, okay, then I won't. If you don't want me to say what they are, I won't. Oh, yeah, that would kind of defeat the purpose, wouldn't it?
Yeah, people gotta pay
All
to
right.
know what they
Yeah,
are.
totally. So you got to log into the Patreon. Yeah, I went with specifically movies that I like to watch on or around Halloween, because we're both big horror movie buffs, and so I
Yeah.
wasn't going to try to narrow down like my 5 favorite horror movies, because how the hell would I even do that? Like
Right.
I got to go by genre or category. But yes, my top 5 movies to watch on or around Halloween, and they are some bangers. If you haven't seen these, then you gotta make sure to see them. And if you have seen them, watch them again. You're due for a rewatch.
It's
I
that time
think.
of year,
It
That's
is.
the point, And so Tobias has posted his. I'll be posting mine. Even Men in Black Agent Nate is going to be posting his as well. So if you want to know just even a shred of anything about that guy, that's the only way you can do it is through the Patreon.
It's true.
He is real. He does exist. I promise. We don't just make him up. Maybe.
If we did, how would they know? But yeah, absolutely. You do want to get on that Patreon for stuff like this. It is a lot of fun. And you can find it at patreon.com/wednesdaystalk. So pretty easy to find, actually. It's the same signature that we use across social media for the podcast. So it's always easy to find us. In this case, patreon.com/wednesdaystalk.
Alrighty. Well, with that being said, it is spooky season. So one of the things we're going to do for you guys this year is talk about our own personal encounters with high strangeness. That's going to be a lot of fun. I know that I've told stories here and there through this podcast, through other podcasts, and lectures, whatever the case may be. I don't think I've ever sat down and told it all and one go. So we're going to do that today. It's my turn, and it'll be interesting. Tobias, have you ever sat down and told all yours in one go?
Oh boy, I don't think so. Usually when I'm on a podcast or radio show or whatever I'm being interviewed for, like it's about something else. And so occasionally it'll come up, but no, never just like a whole, hey, just everything you've experienced. Let's talk about it right now. So yeah, today is your day. It's your time to shine.
Today is the time. And you're right about that. It's interesting. Even though when I go on shows, I'll talk about like the Mothman. It feels real fucking weird to be like, yeah, and I seen it,
Yeah.
I don't know why it does. I don't know. Because it's just like, of course you did. Of course you saw the Mothman. That benefits you. And I get right. It.
Yeah. I mean, it does. It makes it, even though it's not, it makes it feel less credible.
Yeah.
And we are, I think, as investigators and public figures, painfully aware of that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, generally speaking, I've been reluctant to discuss my personal experiences because I don't want to distract from what's really important. And you're right. When we talk about our personal experiences in our own minds, I think we have a tendency to go back to does this in any way make everything else I'm talking about seem less credible? Because now it seems like I have a vested interest in pushing a particular narrative.
Yeah.
So
Right. Exactly. And that's silly for people that are always like, share your story. You should share your story. We also have to be comfortable sharing our stories.
The only thing we're guilty of is caring too much.
That's true.
No, it is true though. Like, I'm not embarrassed. I just don't want to make it about me when, it's about all these people who are brave enough to talk to me and come forward. And so, yeah, it can be tough because I think that we just want to do what we can in service of those people. But you're right. We should talk about our own experiences more, which is why we're doing this. And then hopefully that will encourage other people to do the same.
Yeah, absolutely. So, without further ado, let's get into it, shall we? Now, full disclosure, I'm probably not going to share every single little thing I've ever experienced. That's weird. We would never make it through this episode if I did that. Just going to share things that I feel like are significant and ultra interesting, right? So, we'll get into it. So one thing that I want to note, it's not necessarily something that happened to me that I can tell you firsthand. But when I was a baby, we lived in a haunted house.
Okay.
And, just to kind of give you a little bit of a background of where I come from, and it was just regular poltergeist stuff, just doors opening and closing on their own and things moving and
just regular old everyday poltergeist activity like everybody experiences.
we all had a pet poltergeist growing up, right?
Of course. Totally normal.
Just normal stuff. My family always said, no, I don't remember this house. We moved out of it before I had memory. I don't know anything about it. My family always said that it was cursed, and it was kind of an interesting, just a really interesting take on everything, and kind of the reasons behind it is just because a lot of bad shit happened while we lived at that house. One thing, my sister, well, no, not yet. The first thing that happened that was bad is my dad was an accomplice to murder.
That's bad.
It's really bad. I swear to God, one of these days I will tell that story on the page. I've said it for years, but yes, my dad helped kill somebody. and got away with it actually. But it was during that time that they lived there, so life was like nuts. My dad got shot in the process and had his arm. He was fine, but his arm is permanently disfigured from that. But it was a crazy time to be alive. My dad is well, he's a white guy, in case you couldn't tell. But the person that they killed was a black kid, and so people were kind of running off the narrative that it was a like hate crime of some sort.
Mhm.
So we would have weird visitors all hours of the night. Anyway, and then my sister was born during the time period that my parents lived at that house. My sister's deaf, so they just kind of blamed all this like really unfortunate shit on the fact that they lived there, which was odd. Well,
Yeah, I mean, maybe a curse could compel you to become, an accessory to murder, but
right.
probably not. That just
Yeah,
feels, unless the curse was like to curse you with the inability to make good decisions.
that, yeah, that part. Yeah, I think that that is probably easier. But things like people like my mom, who wasn't an accessory to murder or anything. I mean, I could understand how she would have those feelings about something like that
Yeah,
because
that's not her fault.
I mean, it is and it isn't, right? The company that you keep, but people end up in fucked up situations, and you make bad decisions. It happens.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
not judging. Absolutely. I could see why she would feel like she was cursed because I'm sure that sucks when you did
yeah,
nothing wrong.
right. She had a lot going on. So of course we moved from that house, and I had a relatively normal life. I mean, I wasn't one of the little kids that was into like the weird, right? I was very much afraid of a lot of things. When I was a kid. Um, like you couldn't take me down the Halloween aisle as a kid, which is so weird because that's not the person I am now. But like I just was afraid of like uh, rubber masks. I was like terrified of them. Um, so I wasn't into like scary monsters or aliens or ghosts or anything like that. And
Okay.
I chug along with my life until I had an incident when I was about 12 years old. Now I did tell this story on the Patreon and kind of go a little bit more in depth. It's in there somewhere. Go find it. But I've never shared it publicly before. Besides that, so when I was about 12, I lived in a foster home at the time, and we were out and about one day, out on the town, and we stopped at a local Meijer to use the bathroom. I don't know if you guys have Meijer in Wisconsin.
We don't. I think they have them in Minnesota, and I have gotten in trouble before because I have pronounced it every way but Meyer. I'll say Major, Major. I think those are the two big ones. And then people are like, how do you not know how to pronounce Meyer? And I go, well, I don't know. We don't have those here. Why are you being mean to me?
I don't fucking shop at Meijer. How am I supposed to know how? Some people will say Meyers, right? They add it's like Kroger, right? Kroger's. They add that
Ah,
unnecessary s at the end. Anyway, Meijer is kind of notorious for having great bathrooms. Because they're like right, so like how when you walk into a big department store and like there's the carts and stuff. Well, they have their bathroom is right there, right at the door.
nice.
So we stopped there to use the bathroom, and I went into the bathroom, and I walk in the door, and right in front of me, you could just keep walking straight. And if you were to just keep walking straight, then you end up between the stalls on your right and the sinks on your left. And so while I'm walking straight into the bathroom here, um, a little man ran from like the sink to the toilet.
Okay.
uh, it was
Like how
weird.
little?
Like maybe up to my knee.
That's pretty little.
Right. So it's not like a midget. Like this is like unrealistically small.
Sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've confirmed it's not a little person like you'd expect to see, like a human being.
Yeah.
Okay.
And ran into the stall, and I was afraid. I was a kid, I was my daughter's age now, and I when I try to think of like the details of what I think this little person looks like, because of course people want to know. I don't really know, and I hate to describe it in any type of way because I wonder if it's my brain just trying to fill in the details of what it is. But it's a significant event in my life because I left the bathroom, went to my foster parents, and told them that I had just seen a leprechaun in the bathroom
Hmm.
because that's what my child brain came up with, was leprechaun. I didn't know about puckwudgies or duende or little fey folk or any of that, you know.
Sure.
So that was my explanation. Now, of course, they were like, "What did you just say?"
Well, naturally.
Not in a good way. Definitely not in a good way. So, they ended up taking this information. So I had just a very traumatic childhood in general, and I'm not going to get into that much detail, but it's more than a lot of people have been through. And as an adult, I definitely recognize that. At the time, I wasn't going to normal school. I was going to like a school that was made for like people with like behavioral health issues, because
Sure.
I had a lot going on. And so you would like have classes throughout the day like a normal school, but it was all about like emotional processing and how to manage stress and anger management and stuff like that. But you would have therapy, and you would have group therapy multiple times a week. You'd have your actual, psychiatrist that you met with and talked to. And of course, they told them that I saw a leprechaun, and I told them that I saw a leprechaun because that's what the fuck I saw in the bathroom.
Uh-huh.
And this did not bode well for my diagnosis, because then at that point, they're like, oh well, this person, they've got a lot more than just run of the mill mental health issues going on. So they were kind of questioning whether or not I would end up being a schizophrenic later in life. And
Fun.
that's how I was labeled, the rest of basically my teenage years. I'm somebody who, makes shit up and sees shit that's not there. And, despite the fact that nothing like that had ever happened again. I've seen people as an adult and they disagree, that was anything other than maybe misidentification of potentially an animal in the bathroom, maybe something else, right? Maybe it's like some type of, not a screen memory, but like a cover for something else that might have happened in the bathroom. I don't know. But yeah, I saw a leprechaun in the bathroom. I thought, I don't know, what do
Huh.
you make of that?
Well, I think it's interesting. Like the first thing that I would note is the contextualization of the phenomenon, right? So you see this thing, this seemingly little man, and you're 12 at the time, so knee high on a 12-year-old is not very tall.
No.
Um, and the only way that you kind of have to describe this thing is to compare it to something you already know, and the closest thing you've got is a leprechaun. And we see that a lot. We
Yeah.
see it so often in this field where people will struggle to describe their experience because they lack the vocabulary to do so. And it's no failing on their part. It's just that what they've experienced is so bizarre, so outside of the realm of normal experience that they lack the words to describe it. And so they will compare it to some pop culture reference because that's as close as they can get. And so that, right away to me is something that is consistent with what I see out of many, many, many credible witnesses. And then on top of that, um, it's interesting because it doesn't sound like you have tried to draw a lot of conclusions. The story doesn't seem embellished to me at all. Um, all of that, I think, is credible. Of course, if you were trying, and I'm not saying you were, but we might as well approach like the obvious elephant in the room for either one of us. Like, if you were trying to make up a story, I think you would know how to, but I don't think you are because why? Well, you know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
especially something like this that obviously had a huge impact on your life. Um, yeah, like just everything about it to me sounds consistent with everything we know about what people report and how they report it. And it's interesting, like I'm curious if you can still picture what the thing looked like.
I think it may have been like your quintessential like gnome type of person. You know what I mean? Like a little man with like a beard and like maybe some dirty clothes. But again, like I said, if I'm being completely honest, my brain could just be filling that in. You
Yeah,
know?
but and knowing that, understanding that, I'm still curious if you can picture it.
If that's maybe what what it was. I mean, that's what I like I said, that's what I pictured, just a little man, a little beard, and some dirty clothes. And I don't know. I think he was like to me it seemed like I couldn't see the sinks when I walked into the room because there's like a wall there where the sinks are, and then you kind of walk more in and it's more open. But it seemed like he jumped from the sink and then ran to the stall. And then I was just like, getting the fuck out of here. That's
Right.
too much mire for me today. And when I think about, because of course now, being who I am and what I do, I've thought about it a lot. I didn't think about it for a really long time, because it was, well, embarrassing. I mean, because I was so adamant that that I had seen what I had seen. I'm sitting here telling all the adults in my life, like, no, I saw this, and they're
Right.
telling me that it's because of mental health disorder that I saw it. So I was kind of conditioned to not ever talk about it again. And it wasn't until I started doing all this that I started talking about it again. Because you can't just fucking go on your first date and be like, oh, by the way, I saw a leprechaun when I was 12. It's not normal.
You can if you
Well,
only
true.
want to date awesome people.
That's a good point. Some people will get it. But it's just, like I said, not something that I have really talked about. But now when I try to analyze it, and think about it, both logically and from, the potential that I fucking actually saw a little man in the bathroom.
Right.
I try to think of course, explanations. I think of like the demographics of the area. Where did it happen? Springfield, Ohio. Oh God. I forgot that was popular now. People actually know what that is. But that's where I saw it. A mire in Springfield, Ohio. And, is there any woods around that area? No, not really. It's pretty highly populated. Um, could it have been an animal? Well, where the fuck did the animal come from and where the fuck did it go? I don't know. And of course, I have to recognize the fact that, again, I was living with a foster family. This is probably one of the hardest time periods of my life had just happened to me. And it could have been some weird trauma response. But why then? Why there? Why the Meyer bathroom? Like, what the fuck was it about the bathroom that would have caused me to have some type of, rewritten memory? I don't know. Um, it doesn't
Sure.
make a lot of sense, but, I have to try to debunk my own experience.
No, I get it. And I do the same thing. And that's kind of the other reason that I brought that up before about, I guess at this point in our careers, if we wanted to try to make up a story about something, we probably know enough to do a pretty good job of it.
Yeah.
But that's pointless. And neither one of us is going to do that, obviously, especially with something like this. um it just doesn't make sense. So if anybody out there suspects that for a second, and I hope that there's nobody who was like, well, I didn't until now, thanks. But but it's true, like, because you do need to be sort of politely skeptical about these things, but
Oh
there's
yeah.
nothing about this story that would make me suspect that it's anything other than an inauthentic experience. And so this is kind of a good lesson for everybody too, when it comes to investigating. Like, nobody is going to tell you, or most people, the vast majority of people, because we shouldn't speak in absolutes, right? But like the vast majority of people are not going to tell you about the lowest moment of their life um, in their paranormal story. You know what I mean? Like there is an element of honesty in that, you know, when people are willing to make themselves vulnerable in sharing these experiences, I find that very credible because that's not something that we see often out of many hoaxers. You know, I think that hoaxers, on the other hand, um, either have a tendency to go for the humorous or to kind of make themselves seem more heroic or important. But very few of them will talk about being in foster care and then being punished unfairly for years because of something like this in what is obviously like a traumatic situation. So, um, yeah, I mean, to me, I guess my question then would have to be at the time, were you into anything like gnomes or fairies or, you know, those kinds of media
No,
or stories?
no,
No.
yeah, not at all. I mean, I was, very much a preteen, but preteen at that time, in my life was like, you know, boy bands and you the
Sure.
general regular normal pop culture, girly movies. I no, I definitely wasn't into anything like that at all. Had never really. I mean, the X Files was popular while I was growing up, right? But I never watched it. I was afraid of that stuff.
Sure. Well, and it didn't have that kind of stuff on there anyway. Like there weren't
Little people.
episodes involving, yeah, little men like that running
Yeah.
around.
Yeah, I wasn't into like sci-fi, I was one of the I hate to say it this way, but like I was one of the cool kids. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't into
No,
that nerdy stuff.
because I was not one of the cool kids. I was into that nerdy stuff.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so you get what I mean.
Sure.
Yeah, I wasn't into that type of stuff. I mean, I was just a regular kid for the most part. I acted out a lot. I had gone through a lot.
Sure.
But just very normal, otherwise. So yeah, it was a very and one thing that like I'll tell you from my own mouth is that, here's the thing is that I will stand in front of anybody and I will tell you with 100% certainty that I saw the Mothman. I will tell you that. That's absolutely what I experienced. And we'll talk about that in a minute.
Mhm.
But I will also tell you that I'm not so sure exactly if I saw a little person. I do question it, but I'm also looking at it from kind of a different scope because it's a memory, because it happened so long ago. There's so many details to it that I can't really recall, especially during such a rough time in my life where I can buy its trauma. I can kind of buy that a little bit. But I can't deny the fact that at that time in my life, from the outside looking in, I was very adamant that that's what I had seen. So
Right.
take that for what you will. Because to my brain at that time, that's what happened to me, and we talk about that too a lot. Is that in some of these cases, it almost doesn't matter because you're so convinced of what you saw. Just, I mean, it's real to you, so that makes it real.
Yeah. Well, I mean, fundamentally, um, it doesn't matter that much,
Right.
really, because you're right. Like the experience is what's important, and how you experienced it is what is important. Lacking any other evidence to the contrary, like
Yeah.
we don't have any evidence available that we can examine other than your lived experience of this phenomenon, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we can sit here and speculate about it all day, but at the end of the day, we don't know if you had some kind of trauma induced hallucination, if this was a misidentification, if this is some kind of confabulation, like, you have created this memory, or if you really witnessed this fucking trauma gnome or whatever run across the bathroom at Meijer grocery store. We just don't know.
It's very bizarre. But that's one. That's kind of a new one for people. If you guys follow me everywhere else, like I said, the only other place I've told that is on the Patreon. So if you're not over there, you've never heard it before. That's why you should be over there, because you'll hear things that you won't hear for years.
True, because we'll just forget about them.
We'll just forget about them. So there was that incident, and of course, that one was a big deal, right? It's pretty life changing for me, just because of everything else surrounding it. Not because I was like, oh shit, leprechauns are real. Just because of what followed, with that stigma. Right. So definitely very interesting. And then of course I grow up, and we were into ghost hunting kind of, when I was more of a kind of an older teenager. We would go to all these supposedly haunted places. Haunted roads was like our thing, right? We like to joyride. We like to get high and joyride. That's what we did. And
sure. There's nothing else to do in the Midwest, so literally. I get it.
Right, nothing else to do. So that's what we did. And did we have weird experiences? Yeah, we did. But one area in particular that we went to was Fudge Road in Gratis, Ohio.
Fudge Road.
Fudge Road, yeah.
I'm sure there were some saucy jokes made about that road.
Oh yeah. We were definitely packing on Fudge Road. That's
obviously.
all kinds of stuff. Now, Fudge Road is very much like a local legend type of thing, right? It's an urban legendy area. And there's all kinds of them. There are, there's the drug house, where supposedly a shootout had happened with local drug dealers, and one of them ended up being hanged on one of the trees there. So on a dark, stormy night, you can see the corpse swinging from the treetops, and stuff like that.
Why would they be hanged after the shootout?
It's a good question. I don't know. That's a good question. Because it's an urban legend, and they don't make a lot of sense.
They need to hire better writers for these urban legends, because that just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and of course satanic cults, right? They're sacrificing, people and animals back there on Fudge Road.
Oh yeah.
There's a mysterious lady in a Cadillac who will run you off the road. So we'd go there all the time. And Fudge Road, it is creepy, right? Back country roads are, especially with all the lore behind them. And
so backcountry Fudge Roads are creepy?
Backcountry Fudge Roads are creepy.
Wow. I try not to judge, but okay.
So, we go out there. So the very first time we ever went out there, okay, it was fucking weird. And we went out. We've gone out there now. I mean, probably hundreds of times. Even now, like every once in a while, we'll go and like revisit just for old time's sake,
Sure.
But the very first time we went out there was 5 of us in a car, and we go to the drug house, and the drug house has like a pointed roof on it. Like it's an old house. So like the roof is pointed. And that's important. So we went to the drug house. Like we park at the drug house, and it has like a 9-foot tall fence, like a chain link fence. And the grass and shit is like grown up over that fence. Like nobody's taking care of this yard, right? It's an old house. Well, we park there. We park right in front of it, and there's a padlock on the fence, which again kind of makes sense, right? You got all these kids, they're coming out to see the drug house, they don't want you really getting in it. That's fine. But when we get out there and we're like standing outside, there's fucking pigs in this fenced in yard, like live pigs. Like you can hear them. They're rooting around. Like we never actually saw pigs, but there was definitely pigs in that fucking yard. And you look at the point, like the top point of the house where it comes together at the roof, and there's a camera there pointed down at the yard. And so while we're sitting there and we're all outside of the car, guess what pulls up? A fucking brown Cadillac with an old woman in it. And behind her, a truck also. And the truck, it's some guy. I mean, think of like the sheriff from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's that fucking
Okay.
guy in this truck. Okay. And he's like, what are your kids doing here? So like while he's like yelling at us, like, what are you kids doing? The woman is screaming about how we're all gonna burn in the pits of hell.
I mean, sounds like she knew you pretty well.
Like, right. I was like, wow. Here's my address. Send me some flowers when I get there. No, she was going off. And so like I said, we're young. We're probably all mixed between like 16 and 19. And we're freaking the fuck out. Like, we're like, oh my God, this is the story. This is what the people say about it. And we're like, we're leaving. Sorry. We all get back in the car and we start to leave. And there is a bridge. There's, of course, a crybaby bridge to get onto Fudge Road. So Fudge Road is like, really, it's kind of one way. Like only one car can fit on the road. So if another car.
So Fudge Road is
a
only
one-way
one
road.
way.
Yeah.
Okay. Just making sure we're on the same page.
Yeah. It's only
One way
way.
road. All right.
So, we're all like going to the bridge, and the driver, her brother, is like, I swear to fucking God, because the claim is like, you're gonna get trapped by this Cadillac. He's like, I swear to God, if that Cadillac is blocking the fucking bridge, like you just ram it, like you ram that shit. And we're like, yes. But there was no Cadillac, at the end of the bridge, and we left. But we had gone repeatedly. There's a million other stories about Fudge Road that I could tell you that are just like that, right? It's just fucking here. What we found out later is that this woman has a house right next to the bridge on Fudge Road. And she goes and terrorizes the teenagers because she hates that teenagers are because she owns almost every single property on Fudge Road. Now, I can't tell this woman what to do. It's fucking weird that she keeps pigs in that locked fence. There is weird shit about it, right? But they're just simple people, and like at the end of the day, like they just want to be left alone, and that's understandable. But it's like, but listen, crazy woman, you're the reason why people keep coming back.
Right.
Like,
if she did nothing, people would get bored and just probably not bother anybody.
They just wouldn't bother anyone. It's like you're part of the lore here.
Right.
And because you're chasing everyone. So like it has like a curve on it. It's a pretty long road. It has like a curve on it. And like for a long time she was hiring some old guy who would sit in his car and would just sit there. And we all thought that was fucking creepy. That was fucking weird. Well, one time my friends go and actually, I wasn't with them, but they went and actually talked to the guy. Like they stopped and talked to him. It was like, what's your deal? Like, why do you sit here every night? And I guess he was hired by her to sit with a video camera and like videotapes like everybody coming through, just in case like there is a vandalism problem or whatever. Then he reports the license plates and so again, totally normal fucking people, like really normal. But on the way to Fudge Road is not the scary road. The scary road, we call it Dead Man's Road. And it also has a bridge on it that is a million times fucking scarier than Fudge Road's bridge. I mean, it's so old, like you're certain it's going to collapse. I'm pretty sure nobody should be driving on it, but we did. And it leads into, like, it's off the main road. It's a bridge, and then you're on a dirt road, like just a fucking dirt road. And we would drive down it. And like I said, it's even more horrifying, and it's very long. So we would drive down it and be like, oh yeah, get in the mood for Fudge Road. But one time while we're driving down it, it's just a bunch of trees beside you, and then sometimes fields. And at one point there's a field, and in the clearing of the field, there's a car there, which is weird. Because although people know about Fudge Road, people don't know about Dead Man's Road. Like there's nobody out there ever. And so there's a car, and as we pass the car, there's a tarp on the ground with something underneath it. And fucking shoes sticking out of the tarp. So, and this was like before smartphones, right? That's how old I am. But we had cell phones, okay? But we didn't really know where we were. I don't know how we discovered Dead Man's Road. I don't know why we would go down that way, but we did. And so we called the police, but they couldn't locate where we were. We're like, we're pretty sure we just saw somebody dumping a body out here. And we're trying to like give them, they're like, well, what's the name of the road? And we're like, we don't know. We have no idea. We didn't tell them we're getting high, but we're like, we're like really high,
They might have guessed at a certain point.
I hope so. I hope they did, because it was, I I know the name of the road now. Actually, it's Anthony Road. If you guys are ever curious, Anthony Road, Gratis,
Oh,
Ohio. Check
it's
it
not
out.
Dead Man's Road?
It's not Dead Man's Road, but that's why we
Oh,
call it Dead Man's Road because we saw a dead man on it one time. That was the point
I
of the
see.
story. I forgot that part.
Yeah. It's like, okay.
So, anyway, we made that up. Not the dead man part. I mean, just the name of it. Anyway,
Right. No, I get it.
so I had always heard about this particular area that there was a werewolf down there
On Dead Man's Road?
on Dead Man's Road.
Okay.
And just in that area, the whole area is fucking weird. But it's just backcountry people in Ohio. It's not that weird, but it's fucking weird,
Sure.
So, I'd always heard about it. I remember the first time I heard about it, I was like, oh, that's ridiculous. I've been down there hundreds of times, and I've never seen a werewolf down there. It wasn't really until I started doing this that I understood that it's not actually a werewolf; it's a dog man, supposedly. And
What's the difference?
werewolves are people that transform into canine type creatures. Dogmen are dogmen all the time.
How do we know that?
Because we do.
That
we're
sounds like
experts.
something somebody made up on the internet.
Totally. But
So many people are mad at me right now. So many people are simultaneously pushing up their glasses and going, well, actually, everybody knows that because of the research and the investigation that has gone into Dogman.
come on,
So,
Tobias.
yeah.
Werewolves aren't real.
Well, yeah, no, now I feel dumb.
Come on, that's how we know. Werewolves aren't real, dogmen are. We knew this, okay? Um, so what I find out about this werewolf is that it's kind of like big news, I guess, for this type of for this type of community. It's pretty well known. So well known, in fact, it took me by surprise when I sat down to watch Small Town Monsters, American Werewolf, I think, or American Monsters, or whatever the fuck it was called about Dog Man. Sorry, guys, you
Okay.
make too much shit. And I see this dude on there talking about, guess what? Fudge Road. Well, he didn't
What?
necessarily Fudge Road, but that area, 1,000% that area, Gratis, Ohio. And he's telling a story about. He tells us one story about how he found bloody clothes out there one time that were like shredded and like bloody because a werewolf got him. I'm not going to downplay the guy's trauma. He really is pretty traumatized about that particular event. He says that he's encountered these things down there. I've talked to the guy. He's real nice. His name is Eugene. And super nice guy. I actually have parts of our conversation recorded again over on the Patreon. I'm really not trying to get you guys to spend your money, but like it is all over there. So I found that interesting that this was a place that we frequented. Just because we frequented it doesn't mean that the dog man doesn't exist, because I never saw it. It's just that, like, obviously that area is fucking weird and there's something going on over there. That's my points. So, anyway, any questions about Fudge or Dead Man's Road or dog people?
When people try to make a distinction between werewolves and Dogman, I have to point out how silly that is every single time. It's like when people start talking about the ecology of Bigfoot or something, and my brain just shuts down and I'm like, we don't know any of this. Like this, you're just making this all up. Like this is not a species that we have been able to study enough to know the kinds of things about it that you are claiming to know, like what it eats and its mating habits and its migratory patterns and all of this stuff. Like you don't know any of that. And so that's where I'm at with like the werewolf dogman disconnect. I think it's interesting. So is it supposed to, now I'm confused. So like, is it supposed to be are people calling it a werewolf or are they calling it a dogman?
So there are old reports about it. It's known as the Beast. You're gonna love this. The Beast of Butter Street. Okay.
You're right. I do love that. I love it so much. The Beast of Butter Street.
Of Butter
That
Street.
that sounds like, God, I don't
Near
know. Like
Fudge Road. Fudge
Near
and
Fudge
Anthony Road.
That sounds like maybe the tamest porno ever,
Ooh, yes. Yeah.
or a really wild kids book,
It
but
could-
nothing in between those two extremes. Porno
Yeah.
or kids book. It's one of those two.
The Beast of Butter Street. And again, these are old reports that describe some type of werewolf, dog man, whatever the fuck you prefer, type of creature, some type of weird, anomalous canine type of creature. So I actually, the last time I went down there, and I think I've talked about this before because it's probably one of the most extreme lengths that I'm willing to go to for the paranormal. We went down there to go investigate and didn't find anything. But I really had to pee. A lot of my paranormal stories involve peeing. But
Peeing is
uh,
like a magnet to paranormal phenomena.
yeah, but we went to Meyer, and then I saw a werewolf in the bathroom. That didn't happen, but I did stop at a bar. It was the only thing that was open. It was real late at night. I stopped in. I took my pee, and I'm at the bar. I'm at the local bar. I'm in here. I might as well talk to people. So I did. I started, asking. I go up to the bartender. I'm like, so I hear you guys. I hear you have a monster. And they're like, what? I was like, a monster. They're like, what are you talking about? They're like, we got this big bird, this big old hawk that, terrorizes the local cats. And I was like, no, 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 this is like a werewolf. And they fucking had absolutely no idea what I was talking about.
Did you describe it as a were-dog wolf man?
I didn't. I
Because
probably should. Then they would
you
have been
should
like,
have done the word
oh.
mashup. That's the name now. It doesn't have to be werewolf or dog man. It's were-dog wolf man.
Were-dog wolf man. There we go.
Covers all your bases. Nobody can be mad.
I mean, let's be honest. Werewolf is the cooler word. Like dogman
It is
kind of sucks. Like
totally
sounds stupid, but
100%. Like I would prefer werewolf. I think we should just stick with that until we actually know better. Because the descriptions that people give, there is no difference.
right.
It's just a fucking werewolf, you
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah. So, but yeah, they didn't know. And it wasn't just the bartender. I mean, there was people like sitting at the bar and I had them all like, I'm like, what about your beast? And they're like, what? But they did, like I said, tell me about some giant bird that was terrorizing the local stray cats. So that was cool.
Also cool. I would also accept Wolfman
Wolfman is okay. Yeah.
because of the Universal Studios monster
Mhm.
and its association with werewolf.
Yeah.
But that's it. Werewolf and Wolfman, you guys. Werewolf or Wolfman or get the fuck out.
Get the fuck
We
out.
don't
No
need
dog
that
man
dog
here.
here.
What's
You're
dog
just
man?
confusing the issue,
You
So
talking about the
it's
comic book character?
right. Is there a comic book character? That'd be amazing.
There is. It's the same people that do Captain Underpants. So it's like a kids thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's dog man. Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna act all confused and be like, "Do you mean like the comic?"
Right.
Every
Yeah.
time somebody says that from now on. Oh no, you meant werewolves. Oh, okay. That's my bad. That was the disconnect. I
Yeah.
thought you were talking about a children's comic, but you were talking about werewolves.
But I will say, in regards to Mr. Eugene and his experiences, he does get very emotional talking about them. He begged me not to go out there in August specifically, begged me to not go out there alone, and begged me to not go out there unarmed. So,
Hmm.
but that's his story to tell, not mine. Mine's just kind of explaining this weird area that I've been to a bunch of times, and weird stuff has happened. Like I said, there's definitely something strange going on there. Nothing quite as notable as the little man in the bathroom. So I don't know. Interesting.
Well, that is interesting stuff. And yeah, I mean, I would not ever want to downplay that man's experience. And it sounds like, he takes it seriously. And so, yeah, maybe there's something to it. Maybe there's something going on. And I don't want people to think that I am
An asshole.
denying.
Oh.
Well, whatever. Look, what people really think of me is none of my business. There's
No,
not
that's
much
true.
I can do about it. But I don't want people to think that I don't that I just don't accept people's authentic experiences in seeing a wolf man sort of hybrid creature. I just think Dogman's a stupid name for it.
I agree.
I think we already had werewolves. Everybody knows if you say the word werewolf, everybody knows what you're talking about. So just stick with that.
Yeah.
That's
No,
all.
I
That's all I'm saying.
absolutely agree with you. I'm skeptical of Dogman. I'll say that now. I am. But I'll tell you, the witnesses have some of the most emotionally charged, experiences I've ever heard.
Sure.
So that part kind of keeps it alive for me. But I'm not afraid to say that. I just don't know if I believe it fully. But maybe I'll see one of these days, right? Butter Street's just right up the road.
Yeah, fair enough. And now there might be people saying, yeah, but Tobias, if people aren't seeing this thing change, then how could we call it a werewolf? And to that, I would say, well, I think certainly if what they're seeing is some kind of canine human hybrid looking creature, then that would almost certainly be responsible for some, if not all, folklore associated with werewolves. And so it still works as a name because really what the word werewolf is describing is a phenomenon,
Yeah.
and finding out facts about that phenomenon that um, that reshape how we think about it or cause us to change our opinions on what it is or how it works doesn't change the phenomenon. The phenomenon is the same. It's always been. The only thing it's changing is our perception of it. So really, it wouldn't be that werewolf isn't appropriate. It would be that we need to then amend the definition of werewolf.
Well, let me ask you, how many
So,
times have you changed in front of a stranger?
oh boy, outside of like organized sports or
Right.
gym class or something,
Yeah. I mean,
almost never.
you don't, right? It's just rude. So, I mean,
Right.
we can say that. Whatever these canine creatures are, they got more respect than the Greys. So,
Sure. Oh, and you also don't know that they aren't changing. And I'm pretty sure there are reports of people seeing some kind of transformation take place.
yep.
So again, just no matter how you slice it, folks, werewolf. It's the right word. Make the right choice.
Make the right
Werewolf.
choice.
It's the right choice. It's the right
Oh,
choice for you, for your family, for America.
stop with the America. Our Canadian listeners are like, okay.
Canada. You're part of this, Canada. You're in it.
You and your Saskatchewan
Right?
fucking weirdos.
You got to get on Team Werewolf now.
They need to make a Providence and name it like, I don't know, Werewolfden or some shit. Anyway,
Sure. Just call it werewolf. That's all I'm saying. And I'll
just
shut up
werewolf.
about it.
So then, at the age of 18, I believe I saw my first UFO.
Hmm.
And that's not the weird part yet. So I saw a UFO sitting outside of my parents' house smoking a cigarette, and it was like 3 o'clock in the morning. I don't know. It was real late at night, and it was like a pair of headlights, and it was like coming like kind of towards me. I could kind of see it. Like it looked really low, and it was like below, like it was like right on top of the trees. I mean, it was huge. Whatever it was, it looked like. That's why I think it was low. But all I could see were the two lights that were on it. So it was like a car traveling through the air. And again, it's nighttime, so I don't really see the shape of whatever the lights were attached to. I just saw the lights. And they're kind of wobbling back and forth, and then they just kind of fly over, no sound at all, and they kind of take off. I was very afraid of aliens at that time in my life. Like I'm still pretty afraid of aliens, to be honest with you.
Sure. I mean, yeah, I get it. You probably should be.
Yeah. So, but I kind of like, I was like, what the fuck did I just see? So, we had internet then. I'm not that old. But I did find like a forum of where people could like report their UFO sightings in Ohio. And I get on there and I'm trying to look to see if anybody had seen what I had seen. Of course, it wasn't that night. It was like the following couple days or whatever, and I didn't see that anybody else had seen it. and just kind of moved on with my life. Well, maybe 6 months to a year later, at some point, I moved out of my parents' house, was living on my own. I was looking for a job, and I was looking for job listings on Craigslist. Back when Craigslist was not a total piece of shit yet, so you
Okay.
could do stuff
So it
like
was only
that.
like 30 or 40% casual encounters.
Yeah, yeah. Back when they were fun to read, you know.
Sure.
So I'm on there and I'm looking for jobs, and I see this post about, hi, I'm a student at Wright State University. Wright State University is known for being a film school. I'm making one of my projects that I'm making is a documentary about UFOs. If you've seen a UFO, contact me. So I did. I reach out to this guy, and we plan for somewhere to go. And I meet him at a coffee shop, at a very well populated coffee shop with my husband. And he interviewed me about what I had seen. Very normal looking guy. Can't tell you anything about what he looked like. He just was a college student. Very, very normal. So he records our conversation, and we both go on about our business. Now it was weird because he only recorded audio, and he did mention that this was a documentary that he was making for film class. And okay, whatever. That's still not the weird part yet. The weird part is that about 3 years later, and I know it had to have been about 3 years, because I had just gotten out of my marriage, I am looking for another job on Craigslist again, and
Mhm.
learned my lesson this time around not to go on there anymore. But while I'm there, I see an ad. Hello, I'm a student at Wright State University. I have a project for my film class. I'm making a documentary about UFOs. If you've seen one, let me know. And that's weird. Now I kind of tell this story, and I tell this story. I kind of say maybe I encountered a Men in Black. You know, Wright State University used to physically be a part of Wright Patterson Air Force Base. They did sell it. That's how we know, within the UFO community, that Wright Patterson does in fact have underground tunnels, even though they say they don't, because Wright State has underground tunnels. We're
Mhm.
not that stupid.
Sure.
Um, you can also literally see them through the fucking vents in the ground. It's so dumb, but whatever.
Right.
They denied Area 51 until like 2013 or something crazy like that.
Sure.
Um, so I don't know. I don't know what this was. It just is fucking weird. You wouldn't still be working on the same school project that many years later.
Seems unlikely. I mean, you would have failed out by then. Now, I will say this: I I don't think you encountered a man in black, because that's either Johnny Cash or something Gray Barker made up. But it's possible that there was some kind of government interest in the UFO phenomenon, and that was sort of a cover story for them to find out about it. So, like, if this is, say, in the proximity of Wright Patterson, then they may have had something going on, right?
Yeah.
That they wanted to monitor, to see if any civilians had noticed. And if they had noticed, then they wanted to find out about it. And so they just made up this story about being a film student. But really, they work for like the Office of Special Investigations or something with the fucking Air Force. And they're just trying to find out if anybody has seen this thing that
Mhm.
they're working on that they don't want you to see.
Yep, and I've considered that. I've considered maybe it wasn't even that deep. Maybe it's somebody like you or I, and they're using this as a cover just because when you come out and you're like, oh, yeah, I'm a ufologist and I want to hear your UFO stories, it might kind of push normal people away from telling the stories.
Yeah, fair.
Even though I guess I would never like make shit up just to get stories from people like this,
Well,
like
it's so
this,
unethical.
and you don't have to. Like, there's an
Right.
overabundance of people willing to tell you their high strangeness. But yeah, I mean, I've definitely considered all possibilities, but it. I'll tell you what it wasn't. It wasn't a film student at Wright State University making a film project about UFOs.
That's fair. I do like the idea of this completely nondescript, just Joe white guy in like, and I not even in like a Wright University sweatshirt. It just says like State University or something on it.
It just says college.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Just out there interviewing people like, hello, fellow human. I am also interested in the UFO phenomenon. Do you like college? Me too.
I study at insert college,
Right.
But he did. He just seems so normal. And let me tell you, if you're any type of organization, whether it's the Men in Black or the government or whatever, I mean, you're gonna have them just be fucking normal looking people. Like they're just gonna be so forgettable. And this guy definitely was. I can't tell you what his hair color was. Nothing. I don't know. Don't remember.
Sure. Absolutely. Well, I mean, like the reason that's what I thought of right away was, of course, Richard Doty. And it's not like he seemed like a real crank when he was messing with Paul Benowitz, right? Like,
Yeah.
sure, he must have seemed very convincing. And if you see him interviewed, he does seem like a normal guy that, and he is, like, but I mean, as in OSI agent, intelligence officer, basically whose job it is to confuse people so they don't actually know what the government is doing when they don't want you to. Obviously, like he's really good at manipulating people, and you don't do that by seeming weird and off-putting. You do that by seeming like relatable, like a quote unquote normal person. So yeah, no, I get that.
Yeah, and it was just, I mean, but it was strange. I should have gone to the second interview and just fucking acted like like I wasn't in the first one.
Yeah, just like you have no memory of it. Absolutely. So nice to meet you for the first time ever.
Give him the eye, like it's it's if it wasn't weird already, I'll make it fucking weird. That's for sure.
Yeah, right.
I'm curious. I wonder what that guy's doing now. Probably making a film for his Wright State University film project about
Maybe
UFOs.
Watch you is just like some weirdo trying to get like, I don't know, feet pics or something, and he just needed a way to get people to try to have coffee with him or whatever.
And then I show up with my husband. He's like, oh.
And he's like, damn it.
Just trying to find chicks that are into UFOs.
Yeah. So this is going to make it way harder to take pictures of your feet under the table, but I'll give it a go.
Yeah, it was interesting. It was weird, and I guess I'll never know the answer, right? Unless somehow, because I've thought about that. Maybe he is making a UFO documentary, but he just doesn't go to the school, and he just uses the school again as a cover to get stories from people. Again, whatever it wasn't for fucking school. I can tell you that. That's all I know.
Right.
So, there's that one. So, I'm gonna get into the moment you've all been waiting for. I know, the Mothman. Let's talk about that, huh?
Yeah, I think we should.
That's probably the most well-heard story from you guys that you've heard me talk about, but we'll go ahead and talk about it again. So it was the summer of 2016, just like any summer. I was probably about 25 at the time, and I was at a friend's house, and we were doing what we normally did. We were getting high. I did that a lot back in the day.
Right.
But, that's what we were doing. We were partying. We were having a little 2-person party. It's my best friend. Shout out to Janet. I know she's listening. But, we're hanging out, and we're making weed brownies, and, we do our thing, right? We eat our weed brownies. We have our good time. It's the end of the night. We're going to bed now. Like I said, this was not unusual. This was a typical summer night for us. It wasn't the first time I had ingested pot. Certainly not the first time I smoked it. Not the first time I drank. And I'm trying to sleep. And it is super late at night. It's probably about 2:00 in the morning. And I'm sleeping on her couch. And while I'm laying there, I just kind of start, I don't know, man. I was just freaking out, I don't know. I was just freaking out. I guess I don't know how to explain it unless you've gotten really high and freaked out before. I start feeling a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear, and one thing that you'll kind of do when you do drugs sometimes is you'll kind of like pick like somewhere to like look at, right? You like pick a spot in the room or something to focus on. A lot of the times for me, it happens when I'm on the toilet, right? So I'm like going pee and I'll like look straight ahead of me at the wall and be like, okay, I'm really high. It's fine. So
Okay.
I'm doing that. I'm looking for a place to ground myself. And the spot I had chosen, it's not that significant, but she had this like TV cabinet. And it was like catty corner in the room. And it was the spot between the top of the cabinet and the top of the ceiling, which was about a 2 foot spot. Um, so I look up in that corner and all of a sudden something's happening. So I'm staring at this corner and some weird misty thing is starting to go on at the corner. And I'm checking it out, and this weird kind of black mist starts forming like a head shape. And the head shape then ends up, once the head is a little more formed, starts creating shoulders. The shoulders start creating what I thought at first were arms, and the arms are starting to like stretch over top of me, like over top of the whole room, like overtaking the whole thing. And as it continues to form, whatever it is, the arms go down and start making this weird shape because they're not arms, they're wings. And I kind of gather myself and realize what's going on. I didn't really realize what was going on. I just knew that it was wrong. And I left the room. I got up and I left the room. I woke my friend up. I said, hey, I'm really high. You need to come hang out with me. I didn't tell her why I was freaking out. I just told her I'm really high. Let's just sit with me for a while. I just told her I was freaking out. She just thought it was funny. She just laughed and was like, ha ha ha, you're just so high. You're fine. It's fine. And we did. She's a good friend. So we hung out for a while until I was feeling better. And then I went to sleep the rest of the night without incidents. I guess I know I kind of rushed through that. Truth be told, when I describe this, people want like detail, and I can't really give you detail because I didn't stick around long enough to wait for detail to happen. And when I tell it, it takes me longer to tell it than the actual event took place. It was seconds, right? Before I made the decision to leave the room. And a couple of details that I can tell you is that it's like, you smoke a cigarette and like the smoke forms in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like that. It was weird. The best way that I can describe it to people is like, when you were in school and you had like the overhead projector and you had like the teacher would put like the clear plastic sheet on it, right? Projects it to the wall or whatever. And then they would have like another sheet on top of it, and it's a blank one, and that's what they're writing on. And they could like accidentally hit it and like skew it a little bit, so it's like off center of the original paper. It was like that. It was like a layer on top of like what I was actually saying. It was fucking weird. I don't know. It's fucking weird. And before I let you have your questions, I'll say that of course people have questioned whether or not I saw. Well, how do you know it was the Mothman? What made you think it was the Mothman? How do you know it wasn't a shadow person? Right? Those are pretty popular. They're everywhere. They like to come hang out at your house. People don't see Mothman inside the house. Here's what I'll say: people do see Mothman inside of buildings. It does happen. I have talked to people that have, and there are pretty well-known reports where people have. It's not doesn't happen all the time, but it has happened. But how do I know it was the Mothman? There's nothing that I can tell you that says that for sure. It's not like he told me I'm the Mothman.
Right.
It's just in all my years of research and also knowing where my life went from that point, and I just know that it was, and that sounds so crazy and ridiculous, and I know it does, but I don't know. When you know. That's it. So
Okay. Yeah. No. I mean, fair enough. Oh boy, I love the fact that you would tell that story and somebody would be like, "Well, how do you know it wasn't a shadow person?" Like that's the first thing they jump to. I mean, here we are back in werewolf versus dogman territory. That's not an explanation for anything. Like, anyway,
Yeah.
um, I would expect the more common question to be, how do you know that this wasn't due to the ingestion of marijuana brownies?
Oh, now that's a really good question. How do I know that? Because marijuana doesn't cause that in people. Um, Marijuana can cause hallucinations if you are very allergic to them and you're dying.
Okay.
But it doesn't cause hallucination. I've never, had anything like that happen before while high ever, and I've smoked some really good weed in my lifetime. But it just wasn't. I mean, like I said, scientifically, it just doesn't work that way. I wish it did. I'd probably smoke pot more often.
Yeah, right. Sure. I mean, I would expect that to be the most common skeptical explanation would be
Oh,
some
yeah,
sort
and people
of
do.
influence. Yeah.
People. I've definitely had people be like, "Well," so I went on a show one time. I'm not gonna name drop them, but I went on a show one time, and they edited out the part about me doing pot brownies.
Really?
Yeah, and because they're like, "Well, it's a family friendly show," and I'm like, "Okay, well, so
Marijuana's legal in like half the country now.
right,
Like it's
yeah,
not
yeah." And
okay.
but it didn't matter. This was like almost 10 years ago, too. Also, like, it's not like I was doing it yesterday,
Right.
which I did do yesterday. I didn't. I wish I was that cool. But so they edited it out, and there were people that had listened to me tell that story on another show, and were like, "Oh, well, she's lying." She didn't mention the part where she was high, and man, that felt really bad. That didn't feel good at all.
Oh, I bet.
Because I only like I include the weed brownies part on purpose. Like I want you guys to know that I am I want to be credible. And if I were to forget that part, like they accuse me of, if I were to leave that part out but tell it in other places, it would ruin my credibility.
Sure.
And I'm not about that life. So, but the reason why it's significant also is because I didn't walk away from that going, I saw the Mothman. I couldn't have told you what the Mothman was in 2016. I was not into this stuff at all. I was very much scientifically minded. I just didn't believe in this stuff. We'd been on Fudge Road 10 million times. I never saw a fucking werewolf. So I was like, that's not real. You
Right.
know, um, it wasn't until I didn't really remember that this happened until I do what I do now. And it was 2021 when somebody gave me their Mothman report. And in their report, they told me about seeing it in Atlanta, Georgia, in a hotel. Well, it wasn't in the hotel. They saw it outside of their hotel room. At first, it was peeking through their window. When they got to the window, it like flew off. And the girl was like, I just want to be honest with you. I want to tell you up front, we took some like THC gummies, but like this is what we do like every day. This is
Yeah.
not. And it just, I don't know what about it set it off in my mind, but it did. And I was like, oh my God, I fucking saw it too. And it just made, for me and everything that I had been through, which, there's kind of a second part to the Mothman situation, which, I'll tell here in a minute. With everything that I had been through up until that point in my life, it's like the fucking puzzle just finally came together and it all made sense. And that's where that weird sense of just knowing comes from. I didn't know it at the time. I had no idea that's what I was looking at. I just I thought that I was really high and saw it because I saw whatever it was because I was really high. And I just made it up in my head, you know?
Yeah. No, I think that's fair. And I think the unfortunate reality of how people will perceive the experience because any sort of drug is involved is going to be as some kind of hallucinatory experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, which I mean, to your credit, is why I think you are upfront about it, and you mention that every time, and you should. And I think that lends it credibility as an authentic experience. Like I think that um, in all likelihood, you experienced what you're describing I couldn't tell you what it was, but yeah, I mean, it doesn't change what you experienced, Um,
Yeah.
hmm.
And for
Yeah, it's
me,
interesting.
that's the experience that's like, I know what I saw. Like, the little man, to me, I can reason it away. The all the weird shit on Fudge Road, the UFO even. I mean, I probably saw a UFO, but like that guy, there's probably some normal explanation. Like this, I just know it. Like I'm for certain of what it is that I witnessed that day. And if I hadn't gone on to research Mothman specifically, you wouldn't have ever been able to convince me that that's what I saw. If it wasn't for everything that followed in my life after that point, it I just would have forgotten about it. I just would have buried it away and been like, it didn't happen.
Sure.
That's the wild part to me about it. And that part is hard to explain to people that haven't been through it. That is the most difficult piece of this puzzle is how to just explain what happens later. And again, it wasn't like I saw this thing and was all of a sudden a believer. I wasn't. I didn't want that to be real. It's not even that. It's just that shit didn't happen. I wasn't, there's no science behind it, right? It's not real. It's really that simple. But, it got to the point in my life where I couldn't ignore this stuff. And that is kind of the last thing that I'll share here is well, I mean, frankly, why I really got into this, why I really wanted to research it and understand it the best way I could, was Mothman Festival 2019, and this is where the butterfly skeleton that I bought earlier plays a part. That's why it's important to the story. So, I was invited to go to the Mothman Festival with a local friend. The local friends made YouTube videos. Like she was big into that. She was a pretty sizable YouTuber at the time. She had a lot of big YouTuber friends and stuff too. And she wanted to go make like a fun little YouTube video about the Mothman stuff. And um, I didn't realize that that was so close to where I lived. It's only 2 hours away. So it was definitely a real possibility. She was going to get an Airbnb and we were going to hang out for the weekend. No big deal. Well, kind of leading up to the festival is where things started getting weird. I mentioned in the beginning of this that I'm a child of trauma, been through a lot in my life, but I had been on this great self discovery journey and had done a lot of work on myself. And I had kind of hit a snag in that process and I just started feeling strange.
Okay.
Not good again. And it had been a couple of years since I had felt that way because I was doing so well. Is it just clinical depression, right? It's just an imbalance in the brain. It could be. I was well enough to be able to recognize that that's what it could have been. Or maybe I just still had some stuff going on. Maybe I just didn't fucking feel good. Who knows? But one of my friends, I'd been kind of talking to different friends about, how I was feeling, like you should do if you're feeling some type of way. And one of my friends said, "Girl, get you a tarot card deck and pull you some cards." And I was like, I don't really, that's stupid. I'm like, I don't believe in that stuff.
Sure.
Yeah, but she's like, no, really. She's like, listen, just, it's not, tarot cards are not what you think they are. It's introspection, right? At least gives you a guide to how to kind of follow your day. And I'm like, okay, all right. So I do, for the first time ever, do something like that and purchase myself a tarot card deck. And I'm pulling cards every day and just kind of living my life based off of what the cards say. And, again, it's not a huge to do, but it's kind of hard to explain if you're not familiar with the cards. But, they'll just kind of be like, oh, today you should really focus on your, creative endeavors, or, you should really try to stay close to home and clean your house or whatever.
Sure.
You know how tarot cards work. But, one aspect of this, so my friends had invited another YouTuber to come to the festival with us. And this particular YouTuber, we had kind of chit-chatted online a lot in a sexual way.
Okay.
But it's not somebody I ever thought I would have met, like, for sure. Like, and that's not something I normally even do. Like, I don't talk to people like that. And it sounds weird because now I do what I do, but like, especially at that time, I wasn't like trying to have a long distance anything going on. But because she invited him, we were very much going to share a room together, and we just kind of thought it would be a good idea if we tried to, like, at least get to know each other a little bit instead of just what our buttholes look like. Um, so,
Okay. I mean, that's pretty intimate knowledge of someone, but sure.
right, you think you know a guy, right? If you see their butthole, but man, you sure don't. So anyway, um, but we start chit chatting about normal things, and he's just kind of, what are you into? I'm into this, and he kind of tells me about how he's into like the esoteric stuff, and and I don't really know anything about it. And I'm like, oh well, I have a tarot card deck, that means I'm cool, right? And we just kind of talk a little bit more about some things. Now he's really interested in the Mothman, and again, I know nothing about it. And we keep kind of talking about it. Well, one day I'm driving. I picked my daughter up from daycare. I'm driving home. It was about 3 o'clock, and we're texting back and forth, no big deal. And something odd happened. It was weird. It's not a huge deal, but I'm sitting at a stoplight, and this giant shadow kind of swoops across the intersection. Now, this is like a shadow that I'm seeing on the ground. It's not a shadow up in the sky, because I then go and look up in the sky to see, like, well, what the fuck was that? I don't see anything. It is a very bright day, and it was probably either August or September, right? We're right around the Mothman Festival. No, not a cloud in the sky, and here's this weird shadow thing. And that was strange, but I get over it. And probably a couple weeks later, again, right before the Mothman Festival happens, I've been talking to this guy, and he's telling me about all this esoteric knowledge that he has. And, he's a regular Aleister Crowley. And so...
Oh, well, okay, that's a huge red flag. Get rid of that fucking guy.
Huge red... Well, I didn't know that at that time, Tobias. Where the fuck were you to let me know? I'm just kidding.
Yeah, right.
Because I didn't know anything about any of it. So I go to the store one day. I'm going to the grocery store, and we're just kind of talking also about like what the plans are once we get to Point Pleasant. Like, we're there to work, right? They're making YouTube videos and stuff, and trying to figure out what all we want to see. And I get a weird thought in my head, like a weird intrusive thought that I could not shake. And it was repetitive and strange. Now, I have ADHD. Intrusive thoughts happen. But this was just something else. And all of a sudden, in my head, I'm hearing evoke the Mothman. And it's repetitive. I don't even know I have no idea what that even means. And it's, evoke the Mothman, evoke the Mothman. It's like a chant. And I get out of my car, and I'm walking into the grocery store, and it keeps happening. Evoke the Mothman, evoke the Mothman. And I'm like, okay, sure, I will, whatever. But as I walk into the grocery store, it's also, again, it's September, and they have their Halloween display up. And I walk up to the Halloween stuff, and like I said, I'm a sucker for terribly inaccurate skeletons. And I go to their terribly inaccurate skeletons. Like the mermaid, I love that shit. But guess what they have? They have these butterfly skeletons that they fucking look like the Mothman. Like, it looks like a Mothman. It's like the Mothman statue in skeleton form. And I guess while I'm telling you this, I probably should have done it earlier. I'll take a picture of the one that I literally just bought 5 years later and send it to you. It was just weird. And, so I see these little skeletons, and, the thought kind of disappears, and I'm like, huh, that's strange. What had just happened to me, which I didn't know at the time, was, well, it was a weird synchronicity. And, things just got weirder and weirder from there. We go to the Mothman Festival. Me and this guy mutually together share a lot of strange synchronicities, and I can't get into every single one. I will one day. I do have them listed out because I do, and I want people to know about them. But the whole weekend is like that, the entire weekend. And we kept calling it, we were kind of joking about it. We're like, oh, it's a sign from the universe. It's a sign, and one of those weird synchronicities that we had was, because we kept making that joke over and over again. We stopped at a pharmacy in West Virginia somewhere. It was like an hour in the opposite direction of where the festival even was. It was insane that we took that much of a detour. But I'm a smoker, so I get out to smoke a cigarette. I get out of the car to smoke a cigarette, and everybody goes in the pharmacy, and I'm just kind of standing around doing my thing, and I noticed this like newspaper like holder sitting there, and the publication, it says, it has real big on the sign of on the side of it is signs of the times, and it was a literal sign from the universe.
Right.
I took a picture of it. I also took a selfie standing out there, and we get in the car, we go on about our day. Let me tell you the second part of the signs of the times, before I say anything else. In 2021, I started being who I am now. I've met a bunch of great people, and I was invited. Well, I wanted to go to the Braxy Bazaar, right? It's the Flatwoods Monster Festival in Sutton, West Virginia. And I had hitched a ride with Danner Sprague. He does conjure dust design. He's an artist. He's a local Ohioan. He was going that way. I'm on the way. I asked if I could go with him. He said, yeah. And we start driving down there, and he actually books an Airbnb, because Sutton's kind of a lot further than Point Pleasant. It's not just 2 hours, a little further. So we get an Airbnb the first night, and we actually fully drive into town the second night. Well, he books the Airbnb. We get there at like midnight that night, and we're searching everywhere around this town for the Airbnb, and I see a Fruits pharmacy, and that's the name of the pharmacy down there is Fruits. It's like a chain. And every time I see a Fruits, I think of that moment. I think of the signs of the times. And we kind of walk around this little town. We eventually find our spot, but things are looking kind of familiar. And the next morning, when we have daylight, I kind of get up and I'm like, hold on a second, I have to go check something out. And I go over to the Fruits, and I'm like, there's no fucking way. There's no way. And I go over there, and it's the Fruits. The pharmacy is in like a shopping center kind of. It's like a little historic town, right? So all the buildings are connected.
Mhm.
But the architecture on the building is very specific. It's got these weird arches on it, and I don't see a newspaper holder anywhere, but I do see the weird arches. So I pull out my phone and I put it in selfie mode, and I start walking around. And sure enough, I hit the spot. I'm in the same fucking spot where I stood there and took a selfie years before. 2 times in a weird West Virginian town that I didn't choose either time.
Hmm.
And I don't know what the fuck that means. I can't tell you that it means anything. I have no idea. I'm just telling you that it's fucking weird. And that is where my life has been ever since the festival happened. So I didn't choose this. I didn't choose to get into paranormal. I feel like I really didn't have a choice. I mean, I guess, of course, I have a choice. But it got to the point to where, like, I couldn't ignore all these weird experiences I was having any longer. And, like, if I tried to, the more I tried to, the more intense it got. And, so it's just, at some point you got to go, okay, what the fuck am I being told here? What am I being led to do? Which is kind of where I am today. And of course, I have other weird experiences, small things here and there that have happened, that I'm sure I'll talk about. I'm sure I'll have more in the future. But that's kind of what's led me here to this point now. So,
Well, interesting stuff. No, I'm glad that you laid it all out for everybody. I understand that feeling. Certainly, it's one that I share. The feeling that I'm here because I have to be. So I mean, we might as well enjoy it, right? Like that's why I like doing this podcast so much. Is I do feel like I have to be here, and we might as well have fun. So, but yeah, I don't know. I struggle with synchronicity. Um, Certainly, I have experienced a lot of coincidences in my life. A lot of things have just kind of fallen in place exactly when I needed them to happen in the way that I needed them to happen to lead me in a direction that put me on a path to do something. And it's hard to ignore that stuff, but I think the issue in talking about it is it's like describing your dream to somebody. if you want your coworkers to just slowly begin to hate you, talk about your dreams all the time.
Yeah.
Like, just come into work every day and be like, "Oh, I had the weirdest dream last night," and everybody just rolls their eyes and they're like, "Oh God," because it's so personal and it's so unique to you that it means fuck all to anybody else.
Yes.
And so when you're experiencing it, you're like, wow, this is powerful. Like, what is the universe directing me to do here? When someone describes it to you, you're just like, God, is this story over? Like, where is this going? Like, this all just seems like random coincidence. And so I don't talk about it a lot for that reason, but I think, if it's a part of your story, it's a part of your story. And and you should bring it up. And so I'm glad you did, but boy, yeah, I don't know. I don't know
Well,
where I'm going with that.
no, that's okay. It is a very personal experience, and it only matters to me, and that's why like I'm not gonna sit here and fucking tell you guys every single detail about every synchronicity I've ever had.
Yeah.
That's why I choose to do ones that I feel like are important that people can kind of pick up on and see where I'm going. Because these experiences are um just they're very personal to each person, and I was just saying how the um bigger piece of this that's rarely talked about is how personal this stuff is, because it doesn't match up to what some people want this stuff to be.
Right.
you know and but that's why it's important to share our stories too, because even though it's personal, and even though I've accepted that there have been people that have come before me and there are people that will come after me who will probably absolutely never find the answer to any of this. The only thing that I can hope for is maybe shifting the perspective and how we think about the paranormal and the experiences that are happening. Of course, I'd love to discover a Mothman, you know. But is that going to happen? Probably not. But maybe if we learn more about the people that this stuff is happening to, maybe that's one of the keys here that we're not really utilizing, is what I think.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. And the reason why I think that's a great point is because the experiencer is the only piece of tangible evidence that we have for any of this. We have the people who have experienced it and very little else. And because of that, I think the only piece of this that is at all reliable or predictable or reproducible is the human element. And that's what we have to study, because that's kind of all we have. And even if you've experienced something for yourself, which we both have, that doesn't really put you in a different place, because at the end of that, all you're left with is your experience. And that doesn't really put it in a different category than anybody else's. It's just that this one happens to be yours. So when it comes to this kind of stuff, and this is why I never get mad when somebody doesn't believe that something happened to me, or they believe that it has an explanation that maybe I don't think is accurate. I mean, I get mad if people call me a liar or something, but that's personal. But if I explain an experience I had or something, and somebody's like, "Oh, well, that was this or that prosaic explanation," or at least that's what I think it was, I can't get mad at them, because I don't have enough evidence to support my claim to really argue against that. So I just have to be like, okay, well, I mean, I don't think it was based on my experience, but I get why you would think that, and that's okay. And we can just agree to disagree, as long as we can still be respectful to each other. Who cares fundamentally, Like, I get it. I can't prove it. Believe whatever you want. And that's just kind of the approach we have to take. I mean, people get so mad when they talk about some experience and people don't just instantly believe that it happened exactly as they described and that the explanation isn't exactly what they think it is.
Yeah.
And that's just a way to die mad, like you can't get upset over stuff like that, because if we had good evidence, if we had proof, then, I would have a degree in this instead of English, right? Like people would, or you could go to the paranormalist down the block and consult them instead of having to go to the library or go to the internet or something and find somebody like us,
Yeah.
So yeah, of course, like these are fundamentally personal experiences, and that's all they are, and that's all we have, and we just have to be okay with it. We just have to.
Yeah. And that's what I tell people about it, is that if it didn't happen to me, I wouldn't believe it. I wouldn't. And the only reason why I do is because I experienced it.
Yeah.
And when I say that, that means fuck all to someone who does not know who I am. It doesn't mean a goddamn thing to them because they don't know who I am. So, when we present these topics, we do a podcast about it and we err on the side of caution, right? We kind of walk the line of skepticism and honesty. It's even more important for me to be honest about these things, because the only thing that I have is my word, and I need you to understand that you can trust that word. So I'm not
Yes.
going to mix words, or the truth, or muddy the waters any more than has already fucking happened in the community. You know what I mean? As much as I love you guys that listen to the show because you love this stuff and this is what you're into, I want people that aren't into it to listen, because I want them to understand that, like, there is some type of strange phenomena going on, and maybe it deserves us to look at it seriously. So I'm just going to be honest. Like, that's going to be me. I'm never going to make up a story. I'm never going to sell you a story that I don't fully believe in. It's just not going to
Sure.
happen.
Yeah, no, 100%. And you're absolutely right. I mean, that is why we have to be as open and honest as possible, because again, completely agree. All we have is our credibility, and that credibility has to be built on a foundation of honesty. And if we don't have that, we don't have anything.
Yeah. And and that's why, like, when we talk about like the Loch Ness monster, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I have a bias. I want to believe it's a dinosaur. God damn it. That's
Sure.
what I want. So of course that's the way I'm going to swing, but I do have to also keep myself in check. I have to be able to, you know, um, like I said earlier, debunk my own stories. I have to be able to try to find some type of prosaic explanation for this stuff. One of the people that I researched a lot of these topics with was a true 100% skeptic, did not believe in any of this. She has even had weird experiences with me and still does not believe in any of it. And I love having her around because I need that perspective, because I know I have a bias, and that's a good thing. You should be having people, you should be having different types of people around you and taking in their perspectives as well, when you're researching this stuff. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
but that is, for the most part, that is my story. Did you check out that butterfly skeleton? You see what I mean?
I did. It does look fairly Mothman-esque, absolutely. One of its its antenna is broken or something, so that bummed me out.
It
What happened to
is.
that?
I have no idea, but it was the only one that was there, so
Oh,
I wasn't gonna
okay.
miss out on it. It was too personal and significant for me to not
Sure.
walk out of the store with it.
Yeah, no, I get it. Okay. Well, it adds character then.
I'm gonna paint it black and with red eyes, of course, and then it'll
Nice.
definitely be the moth. I mean, nobody's gonna be like, "That's not Mothman. That's a butterfly."
Right. You're a butterfly. Shut up.
start crying.
Yes.
Like, what do you mean? It's Mothman.
You're not my real dad. Just start bawling and run out. Yes, that's what I would do.
You can't just paint it like the Mothman and call it Mothman. It's a butterfly. Dumbass.
Hilarious.
You know. People have seen them though. I've seen them, like, it comes out every year actually, and I just have never been able to get my hands on one. But you know why? Because it looks like the Mothman, so people fucking go and buy them and paint them and sell them at fucking booths and shit. They really
Ugh.
do.
Boo.
They really do. And I'm like, wow.
Boo.
I'm like, and this actually meant something to me, and you all want to charge me $20 for it? I paid $5.99, friend.
Yeah, I
Paint it myself.
Boo those people. Boo.
You know, so I wasn't the only person that thought it when it came out. That's for sure. Anyway, but so they had a black one. I think that's why they had like different colors. They had like the regular, the black, and the white. And they were like glitter black and like white black. It doesn't matter. Talking about a fucking butterfly skeleton, Jesus.
Anyway, cool butterfly skeleton. So no, I get why that's meaningful, and I didn't mean, and I don't in general mean to downplay people's experiences with synchronicity, because I've had my share. It's just that it is a tough sell.
It is.
To try to talk to somebody who didn't experience your specific synchronicity about why it is meaningful, because it's so personal. Like if you have a Mothman sighting or a UFO sighting or something, there is some common ground, like we have this shared language to describe it. People are generally culturally aware of what that is and what it means. And also it's personal, but it's not so personal. It's not exclusive to you, in that if somebody else was there, they could see it. Other people see the same thing, like the exact same thing. So there's actually a shared sort of element to it as well. So like if you've seen a UFO and you meet somebody else who's also seen a UFO, it's like you're both members of this exclusive club.
Yes.
But with like a deep synchronicity or a series of synchronicities, those are so personal that even when you meet somebody else who's like been through it, it's so different that it can be difficult to relate fully to the depth of meaning there. So like I'll hear people describe their experience with synchronicities, and I'm not in my mind at all going like, oh, well, this is dumb or anything. But still, like there's the struggle to be like, okay, cool. I guess you had to be there. And that's the thing about synchronicity is, yeah, you do kind of have to be there, because otherwise you're never going to get it.
It's like an inside joke, right? You don't get it. Yeah, you were there.
It is. It's like an inside joke between you and the universe.
Yeah.
And anybody not there is really going to struggle, even if they have had, synchronicity experiences or they're open to it, to fully appreciate how impactful it was. So that's just, that's just another layer of bullshit on top of the bullshit fucking salad that is the paranormal. So enjoy, I guess.
Well, right. And then like, try not even just trying to explain it to the people that have the synchronicities themselves. Try to then explain that to people that don't believe in this at all.
That's what I'm saying.
Like that it doesn't matter to them, not one bit, because they really don't fucking get it.
Yeah. No, to them, it's just like, why are you telling me this series of random coincidences, you fucking crazy person? I don't care about any of this. What are you talking about?
Right. What is it supposed to mean? Like, what are you trying to say? Are you trying to say that the universe led you to investigate the Mothman? You have some hidden knowledge of the Mothman. You're so special. I already know. I already know it all. I know because I was that person. I know.
Right.
I get it. And that is the one good thing. Ooh, that's going to be a hot take kind of, but it's a compliment. The one really good thing I will say about, Hellier, because it does put synchronicity in a way that people that haven't experienced it could kind of understand. Now, then they'll take it and make it something else to be like, oh, I saw a balloon, so therefore it's synchronicity. So they don't totally get it, but it is probably the best the best way I've seen it explained to just the common folk. Um, and that's all I'm saying about that. So
All right. Well, I definitely feel some type of way about that, but I'm not going to get in it on the podcast. So,
maybe on the
okay.
Patreon.
Yeah, maybe on the Patreon.
I mean, you can go and read about synchronicity on a professional level, or there's works on it.
Do that.
You
For
know,
God's sake. Can we lead people to the library instead of the television?
that's a fair
Go read a
point.
book. There are so many uh, respected researchers and investigators who have written books on synchronicity and talked about these kinds of experiences. Really, like everybody from uh, John Keel to Charles Fort to Mike Cleland, all of these uh, respected, um, interesting, entertaining sort of people in the paranormal have written volumes and volumes about this kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
So go check that out because you might actually learn something.
Just Google synchronicity book, and there's hundreds. Hundreds
Yeah.
of them that you could choose from. You could even read them all if you want to. But yeah, anyway, the whole point of it, what it comes down to is that, again, gravely personal experiences that are too deep. They run too deep to just completely ignore. And it makes you give up on all your other dreams in life and start chasing the paranormal. I don't recommend it. It's not lucrative.
No, yeah, I mean the pay is shit, but at least the hours suck.
Yeah, at least. It's a good time. Hey, but there's silver linings. You get to do cool podcasts with your friends and go
True.
places. That's cool.
Oh yeah. Like I said, if we have to be here, we might as well enjoy it.
So again, will I ever be closer to understanding? Well, I think I am. I used to say that, well, I haven't learned anything. That's not really true. I've learned about the personal aspect of it all because I didn't get that part at first. Even though that's kind of how it all started, right? But I still didn't make the connection there. Yeah, I have learned a lot, but it doesn't make me be able to give you guys any better answers. No, no, sorry. I'm not ready to write any academic papers just yet, but you got to keep the hope alive, or you wouldn't do it. So maybe one day. But anyway, any final words, Tobias, before we end this episode?
Oh boy, I think we pretty much covered it, but in summation, your experiences are yours, and they belong to you and only you. And if you choose to share them, and I hope you do, just do it with care and with people that you can trust, and try to extend people the same courtesy that you would want them to extend to you when it's their turn to talk about their experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. Talk about your experiences and read more books. Always.
Yes, for fuck's sake, read some books.
And with that being said, here in Spooky Month, we will see you guys back here next Wednesday for some more strangeness.